are back for another Talk About It Tuesday. And of course, we have another great question for you. So let me jump right into it. Hey, Haru, what advice do you have for proper insurance for investment properties and renters insurance? Well, I'm going to share two stories with you that I unfortunately had to experience, and that will explain to you the value of insurance and also why you should not cut corners. And then I'll go into some of the details about properly insuring yourself and what it covers. So the first story, I actually avoided almost a complete disaster. So when I transitioned from owning hostels, I turned those buildings into facilities for the Department of Homeless Services. So I had apartments renting to people who were being subsidized by the city of New York. One of my tenants was also the super. So you have a guy on premises, takes out the garbage and sweeps in front of the place and takes care of minor things. And I cut him a deal by giving him a little bit off on the rent. So this is the summertime. For the month of August, nobody had heard from him. The garbage wasn't being taken care of. He wasn't sweeping. He wasn't answering his phone and had no idea what had happened to him. So he hobbles into my office with a cast on his leg on crutches. And he sits down. He proceeds to tell me that he was selling water on the boardwalk at the beach at Coney Island. And while he was selling the water, a guy paid him with a $10 bill, of course, expecting $9 and change. He put the bill in his mouth and went to get the guy change, and the wind blew the water out of his mouth off the side of the boardwalk. He didn't want to lose the guy's $10 and have to owe him 10. So he jumped off the side of the boardwalk and broke his leg trying to get the money. Somehow he caught the money, though, at the bottom, tied a plastic bag around his leg, and dragged himself back up to the boardwalk, called the ambulance, was taken to Coney Island Hospital. And while he was at the hospital, a guy came up to him and said, "Hey, you need to contact my lawyer." And he said, "For what?" He said, "You can get money for that." So he contacted the lawyer. The lawyer brings him in the office and has two sets of documents. He said, "I want you to sign here and I want you to sign here." He said, "What is this?" He said, "We're going to say you fell in front of these buildings, and one of them will settle and we won't have to go to court. You probably get about 20 grand for it." So he tells me, he said, "So don't worry. I know I owe you some rent. As soon as I get my money, I'm going to get you your money." And I said to him, "You know what? Don't worry about it. Get your stuff and get out of my place. Because if you'll sue him for something that didn't happen there, you'll sue me." And so what you have to understand is that when you are a landlord, people assume, even if you don't have money, that you have money because you do have insurance. And they will make a claim, and oftentimes the insurance company will settle out of court to avoid a lengthy lawsuit and potential, bigger loss, and the person will get money. If you don't have insurance, that money comes out of your pocket. So know that as a landlord, you are a target. The moment you become a landlord, you are a target. People assume you have money and they want it. So I narrowly avoided that one. I'll tell you another story about insurance, really important. So one of the properties I own is actually a 4-story residential property. And I had tenants in there. And one of my tenants who lived on the 3rd floor was drinking with a couple of his friends and started cooking. He laid down, fell asleep. His friends left while he was asleep. Fire in the kitchen. Now, fortunately, the smoke detector worked, and also the sprinkler system we have worked. Now, I say fortunately, but also unfortunately, the sprinkler system worked well. It put out the fire quickly. But a sprinkler system does not shut off by itself. There's no shut off automatically when the fire is gone. When the fire department comes, they have to turn off the sprinkler system. So as you can imagine, this thing is pouring down water, and it flooded the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, and the 1st floor. And when the ceiling actually fell from, I think it was the 2nd floor, the 2nd floor to the 1st floor. So significant water damage. So I'm like, no big deal. That's why you have insurance. Insurance adjuster comes over. He's taking documentation of the damages, and he's like, yeah, telling me, give me an estimate of what we're probably going to get, to repair the place. Then I got a letter in the mail that the insurance company was not going to cover any of the damages. And so I, of course, demanded an explanation. Well, what I did as an asset protection tool was transfer the deed from the property out of my personal name into an LLC, right, to avoid personal liability. I didn't inform the insurance company that I transferred the deed from my name to the LLC, thinking it wasn't a problem. It was a problem. They said I was the insured, not the LLC. They said they don't insure LLCs, and therefore they're going to deny my claim. So I ended up having to cover the cost of the repairs because I didn't pay attention, or it was an oversight, or whatever the case. I just didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't pay attention, and I didn't inform the insurance company the way I was supposed to according to my contract. So it's not only important to have insurance for things that could potentially happen, things that don't really happen at your place, but it's also important to make sure you read the fine print and make sure you follow all the rules that are laid out in the fine print. So let's talk about this insurance. So there are different types of insurance. Regular homeowner insurance is different from landlord insurance, and we have to be cognizant of the differences, right? Homeowners insurance is for your primary residence. You don't have any tenants. Now, some of you are doing Airbnb from your primary residence. You have an extra room, you have a garage, whatever it is, and you're renting it out to short-term renters. You need to inform your insurance company because they usually will make you do an insurance rider, an add-on to cover the short-term rentals. If it becomes long-term, meaning that you consistently have tenants in there, even though you're doing Airbnb, if it's consistent, they might make you switch to landlord insurance. Now, why is that important? If someone gets hurt, if someone causes a fire or does some serious damage to your property, your insurance company will not cover it if you did not inform them that you were using the property in that way. So that's important. But if you have a property that you are renting out long term, as a property is not your primary residence, or you have a rental in your primary residence, you will have to get landlord insurance. Now, what's the difference? Landlord insurance costs about 25% more than primary residence insurance, but it covers certain things. So, of course, just like homeowners insurance, it's going to cover fire, it's going to cover the natural disasters like lightning and snow and ice and wind and rain and those things. Doesn't necessarily cover floods. You have to make sure if you're in a flood zone that you're covered for that too. And that's usually way more expensive if you're in a flood zone. It does not cover flood. That's important. What else does it cover? It covers your personal property that's left at the location, meaning equipment like lawnmowers or appliances, refrigerators, stoves, things of that nature. What it does not cover, which is important for you to make sure your tenants know, and it covers theft, by the way, theft of your stuff, right? But what it does not cover is loss or damage of your renters' belongings. So if there's a fire, it does not cover the loss of your renter stuff, your tenant stuff. If there is a theft, it does not cover the loss of your tenant stuff. So that's when renter's insurance becomes important. If you are a renter, this is important for you. If you're a landlord, it's important to share this with your tenants because they need separate insurance to cover their stuff. A renter's policy is much less expensive than a homeowner's policy or a landlord's policy. But if you value your stuff, you should cover it if you are a renter. And you need to explain that to your tenants. So I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want to really, this is the crazy thing I've heard somebody say, well, that's putting negative energy out there to even get this coverage because then you're drawing stuff to you. That's ridiculous. If your property is valuable to you, if the things in it are valuable to you, if the life of the people in it are valuable to you, you need to ensure that. unless you just have deep pockets and you don't mind replacing this stuff, or you don't mind covering legal fees, or you don't mind covering, you know, medical bills for somebody, you will have to cover that out of pocket if you do not have insurance. Another good thing is with having insurance, if your property is damaged by fire or some type of significant damage and the place is unrentable, a lot of times they will cover the lost rent until the place is back in shape to become, rented again. So that's important. So if you never have a problem where you have paid for nothing, no, you pay for peace of mind. You pay for the potential. Hopefully nothing does happen, but stuff does happen. I guess, again, real stuff and then fraudulent stuff can happen at your location. So it's important to have the coverage. I know in New York State, it's required by law to have coverage. Other places, I don't know, the law might be a little different, but it is in your best interest always to be properly covered. So how do you find coverage? You can go online. They have different websites that will even compare different different insurances for you. You can find an insurance broker. What's the difference between a broker and an agent? An agent works for a particular company and will sell you the products they have. A broker will shop it around and find you something that's suitable for you. Of course, you pay a fee to the broker. They get paid from that. But in the long run, it's in your best interest. So do not be uncovered, whether you're a landlord or a tenant. Make sure you have appropriate coverage. Make sure you read the fine print. Make sure you stay on top of the policy. Make sure if you make any changes, you inform, the insurance company so that you don't get caught out there. And, that's pretty much it with insurance. It's pretty cut and dry. It is part of your asset protection toolkit. So make sure you do it. Keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.